What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the news, data, and technicals affecting the markets in Tesla, and how this could also impact the share price, and also what the data is telling us about the report coming out for Tesla and how that once again will affect us moving forward. Now, before I break anything down about all of this information, before I talk about what the numbers are telling us right now about the next report coming out for Tesla, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends today in just 3 hours, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Tesla was up 6.24% for the day, opening around this 197 area and rallying all the way up to 207, almost hitting 208. It was a very, very strong move by Tesla. It went even higher than I expected. I was thinking that Tesla would get above 200, maybe hit around 202.5, but it ended up going even higher than that amidst all the hype right now about Tesla and also the technical setup we had. But once again, that's very awesome to see Tesla pump like this. I did expect this to happen, and overall, it's looking very, very good approaching the big event that's about to happen. Now, I want to note right now something very uncomfortable and something very important. What's uncomfortable about this is, yes, it's awesome to see Tesla pumping like this, but you have to remember that we need to remain very rational at the same time. The share price looks bullish, it looks very strong, it looks like this thing wants to rip even more. But we have to remember it's going to depend on the data that's coming out. If Tesla does not actually give us a good report for deliveries, this gain right here could actually come all the way back down, and Tesla will likely start filling a lot of these gaps down here. But if Tesla kills it, this share price is going to rocket even more, and we could see this thing approach the 220s. So I'm going to break down what's likely going to happen and also what the news is saying about Tesla first. But before I do that, I have to talk about something else. Now, looking at SPY, I mentioned to you guys that we had a very crazy option chain with a 2.3 plus put to call ratio. It used to be like 2.5. That tells us that a lot of these puts actually got closed, at least from yesterday, and more actually got bought at the same time, and more calls were actually being opened. So we saw a big increase in the amount of calls that came out. We have almost 800,000 calls in total. And on top of that, we actually had almost 2 million puts in total. The large majority of them ended up closing out of the money. So the market makers came out and they did exactly what I predicted, that is squeezing the shorts, continuing to rip the markets and causing as much pain as possible for the shorts once again. It wasn't just them. Many big banks were on this. I think it was Morgan Stanley or one of the big banks and other big institutions were also buying calls like crazy. That also helped bring more and more buying pressure up there, especially because of delta hedging that was going on. And I also want to note that it's the end of the quarter. So a lot of these, big banks, a lot of these hedge funds want some better looking balance sheets. So they were incentivized to pump the markets even more too. All of those things came together and caused this short squeeze for the markets. We saw SPY rip almost to 410, breaking past the 406 and 408 resistances I was talking about yesterday. It just went to the moon. SPX actually hit 4,100. That is insane. So very, very crazy stuff right here. SPY actually closed right where this resistance is. If you actually zoom out of this and we look at, let me see the daily chart, I actually have this like bear flag on SPY. We actually closed just at the very top. And that makes me think that we could see this reject a little bit. But once again, even if we reject and pull back, as of right now, it's going to be a pullback. There's no confirmation that the market is going to reverse from here. As of right now, it still looks very strong and more in favor of the bulls. So we need more data once again to like confirm this. But I just want to note right now, I'm not really seeing like any crash from here or the market just straight up reversing and tanking as of right now. I do believe we could pull back though, seeing where we are at resistance and seeing what this actually did. We are a little bit overextended too, and we do have a possible bearish divergence developing. It's just that it hasn't necessarily shown signs of playing out just yet. It's still developing, and that's the reason why we have to just watch this first. But the good thing is, as long as the market doesn't just like crash way too hard and there isn't way too much bad news, that shouldn't necessarily hurt Tesla too much. And for the most part, I think Tesla still has a very good chance of continuing. We just have to see how deliveries go. Now, for next week, I want to note that we have some data coming out. We have some more PMI reports coming out, especially manufacturing data. Nothing way too crazy for Monday. We have one Fed speaker. I think later on during the week, we have more mortgage data and things like that. So nothing way too huge. We do have some JOLTS job openings coming out too. Over the next couple of days. So that's going to be a little bit significant for the week. But as far as Tesla goes, I want to talk about the news first and then also the numbers that are coming out. We have another FSD beta update right here, which actually allows for much more additional caution right here during times like this. People were saying that there's limited access to it. Once again, this was actually what was happening before, but now it's extended. And on top of that, it actually enables more and more security on the highways and better lane changes and things like that. So I think this is a very awesome update. Once again, they're continuing to give us these. As far as Tesla goes, we had another minor recall, nothing too serious though. It wasn't too massive. It was just over the semis right now because of a brake issue. Nothing too big. I think only like 35 semis were affected. So very, very tiny recall for Tesla. Nothing too significant. And on top of that, I want to talk about now the deliveries. I have a lot of data to go over. To start us off here in China, things are looking really good over there because so far the registrations from the insurance side is showing about 106,000 Teslas were registered just between January 1st and January 1st and March 19th. Sorry, and it's doing pretty well right now. Now we also have some weekly data in terms of the registrations that just came out very recently too, and we're continuing to see over 20,000, like 17 to 20,000 of these registrations on a week-to-week basis for Tesla. So right here, the week before had 18,000. The next week's had about 13,000 and about 17,000 for the first and second weeks for March. Once again, very strong numbers. But I want to note that given what this first metric was telling us, we only had like 10, not 10, 11 plus days left in March, 11 to 12 days left. And they already had 106,000 in total registrations. And the record for Tesla, the all-time highest record in China, was a total of 122,000 deliveries. So it looks to me like they're going to break the record and get something closer to around 130,000 plus deliveries in China, most likely. That is, once again, bullish news for us. Now, when it comes to Europe, things are a little bit different there. And also, before I talk about Europe, I just want to note that I have the numbers on a Google Doc right here. The reason why this is very important is we can actually add these numbers together. I'm going to do this at the end and just talk about the USA too. But first, let's talk about Europe. In Europe, we also saw 50% growth once again compared to the previous year. And we actually saw a total of 19,249 units that were actually registered in just February alone. That is a significant increase compared to February 2022, which had just under 13,000. So that's about 50% growth overall year over year. On top of that, I don't have too much data for like March or also for January, but if we actually add the numbers, I estimated that in Europe, we should be seeing about 45 to 65,000 deliveries or somewhere around there in that range. And for China, we should be getting around 130,000 deliveries at least, most likely, in my opinion. Now, that's going to be a new record in China, which is bullish news, but I'm not too sure about the higher end because I'm looking at the data for like registrations and things like that. And the data is just pretty crazy. It's just all over the place. It's very inconsistent. Some sources are saying we should be getting like 150,000. Others are saying 130,000. I just don't truly know. So I'm just going to stay within the range and say we're probably going to get 130 to 150,000 deliveries in China. This is like the much higher end, which I think it's a little unlikely it's going to be this high, but it is a possibility based off some data metrics. I'm just not as confident about that. I would say closer to around the 130s somewhere around there. So then in Europe, we're most likely going to get 45 to 65,000 deliveries as well, which would put us around 175 plus thousand deliveries from just China in Europe alone, somewhere around there, if not higher. It could be even higher than that. Once again, I just don't have enough sufficient data to really make that claim. And I think that if anything, it doesn't really matter because I think in China, Tesla is killing it. They're absolutely killing it in China. And I think China is going to do very well for the numbers this quarter. And I think Europe is also doing very well. We're seeing huge, huge, huge growth compared to the last quarters of previous years, also from last year. They're just killing it. So, in my opinion, we could get somewhere between 45 and 65,000 deliveries there. And once again, everything now comes down to the USA. We need 217 to 257,000 deliveries, most likely in the USA, for us to meet expectations. I know it's a pretty big range I have. It's just because I don't really know the true ranges in Europe and China, especially in China. It's a little tricky. But somewhere around here, I would say somewhere in the middle is where it has to be at the very least. Somewhere around like 230 plus thousand, something like that. And in my opinion, there's a good chance Tesla is going to meet that number. Seeing what happened so far, we actually had some crazy high estimates and very optimistic views from different analysts. Wedbush was saying that Tesla will be doing well over 200, not 200, 420,000 deliveries. And also, Wall Street's expecting now 432,000 deliveries, right? So there's so many different expectations, somewhere between 420 to 430,000 for deliveries. I believe Tesla will surpass at least 420,000. I'm not too sure about 430,000, but I do know one thing, and that is Tesla has a tendency of surprising. So they do have a tendency of doing very well, and I'm very confident. I also want to note that when you look at their revenue from the past few years, the large majority of their revenue comes from the USA. So they're most likely going to kill it in America again. A small part of their revenue actually comes from China and then other countries, which primarily includes like Europe. But this is super important because when you consider the fact that the majority of this revenue is coming from the USA, and then when you look at the numbers, we have like around 170 plus thousand of the deliveries already coming in just China and Europe. It's pretty obvious to me that the USA is going to have that much or higher, a lot higher than that going forward. So closer to the 200 thousands, somewhere around there. And then that tells me that we're most likely going to get a good USA compared to China and in terms of deliveries, and they should do very well. My only problem is the only problem I see with the USA is inventory levels were actually increasing like crazy in the very beginning of this year. So this was actually around January, inventory levels went up. They ended up coming down thanks to price cuts. And then everything was fine in the very beginning. I'm sure Tesla was killing it from like the middle of January going into like the middle to later days in March. But because of the fact that there was some negative news and also because demand is shifting in this country, as we could be getting closer to a recession, we most likely are, and we're starting to see demand contract a bit. This is important because now we're starting to see demand slow down for Teslas, at least near the very end of this quarter. That tells me that in the USA, I just don't know if they're going to like kill it by a massive margin. They still could. Like I said, Tesla does have a tendency of surprising us, but we have to be very careful at the same time, right? We can't forget about these instances where we saw big spikes in inventories and demand took some time to spur up. Also, at the very end, demand is slowing down as of right now. So we have to be very careful. Like I said, it does not mean Tesla will fail on us. I really doubt that. And I'm still very optimistic. I just want to note to everyone that we have to be prepared for anything just in case. Now, looking back at the numbers for the final time, once again, we should have some good numbers in China. We should have good numbers in Europe and the USA. I'm going to be optimistic and say we should have good numbers as well. Tesla, once again, has a tendency of just exceeding expectations, but I'm also very cautious just in case because of how demand has shifted. So now what's going to happen to Tesla's share price? It's pretty obvious what's going to happen. If they meet expectations just barely, the share price could it could actually respond positively because they'd still be breaking a record for their quarters. Their highest quarter ever was just over 400,000 deliveries. This time we should be doing over 420 to 430,000, if not more. So that would still positively affect the share price, and it could continue pumping off us just barely meeting expectations. Now, if we miss on expectations and Tesla only gives us like 418,000 or something like that, for example, the media is going to just eat it up and scream about it. This is going to have a negative effect on the share price. It's going to break below 205. If that fails, then obviously there's the gap way down here, like I mentioned. And if we do really well, if deliveries end up killing it, and Tesla actually gives us like 435 to 440 plus thousand deliveries, this thing is going to rocket even higher. It's going to go all the way up above this like 211 resistance to break 214, 217, maybe even 220 pretty quickly if we get something that good. Now, from a technical standpoint, Tesla has some very good things on its side. I mentioned to you all that we had this potential inverse head and shoulders that was forming right here. This right here was like our head around this like 163 area. We had the left shoulder. Actually, technically, the left shoulder was like around here, and then we had a right shoulder that formed right here. So right here, this is like the left shoulder. This is the right shoulder. This is the head. It's very likely that if this is going to play out, Tesla would just continue to rally all the way up to about this 210 area and try to go all the way up to at least 217. The odds do favor that, and it's more likely to be bullish than bearish, in my opinion. So, once again, guys, I don't know what's going to happen depending on deliveries. I just don't really know. I also think that the market, the overall market, may pull back a little bit, but I don't think it's going to affect Tesla that much. I think Tesla is just going to be on its own this time, at least for Monday and maybe even parts of Tuesday. And I believe that it's going to react to deliveries, but the odds favor, based off technicals and based off what I'm seeing from the numbers, the odds are favoring Tesla trying to actually form this inverse head and shoulders and play it out and continue to rally and approach the 220s. Once again, I don't know that for sure. It really depends on the numbers, but I'm just saying the odds do favor more upside for the stock based off what I just showed you in the data. So, anyways, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. And just remember that if you are holding calls overnight, this is actually technically a gamble, and you should have been using money you're willing to lose just in case things don't go as you expect them. Now, once again, I'm not trying to say that investing in Tesla and like holding calls overnight during every big event is a gamble. It's not necessarily like that in a sense, nor am I giving you financial advice. But the bottom line is the importance of mitigating risks and managing them when unexpected events could play out. And that's the importance of taking profits early. It's totally okay to take profits. Nobody ever loses money when they take profits. I personally took profits on my Tesla calls already. I'm not really holding anything over the weekend. I'm actually sitting mainly on cash over the weekend. But the bottom line is non financial advice, and just be very careful during events like this. Nothing is guaranteed. But once again, the odds do favor Tesla doing well and actually continuing to pump up. Once again, I'm talking about the odds. Nothing is guaranteed, but the odds do favor, once again, it's pushing up. So thank you all for listening. Have an absolutely incredible weekend. I just want to note that I won't be available to be recording on Sunday for very long. I think the data should be coming out on Sunday. And if the data comes out, then I might be able to record a short video. I really hope I'm available because I do have some family, events to be attending to. I might not be available for too long on Sunday, so I may release a very short video about deliveries. But other than that, I will be here tomorrow. Hopefully, the numbers come out very soon. They most likely will be coming out on Sunday. So just be ready, remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon because the long term is very, very bright. Enjoy your weekends, and peace out.